My name's Patrick Foley, and this is my review of Breadwinners for UK Film Review. This is a short film that follows two men on either side of a phone call. You have Wade, who is the manager of a small gun store chain in the US. He is on the phone to Hank, who appears to be one of his customers who's recently purchased a gun. But as the film develops, it becomes clear that Hank has very different motives for calling up the gun store on that day. And what begins as a simple query suddenly turns very, very sinister as Wade realizes that Hank does have a prior connection to the store and all of a sudden may have motives beyond just having his guns repaired. Breadwinners is a really, really interesting short film that is quite hard to put into any one box. Some viewers might be a little bit thrown off at times by the tone. It jumps very much from being a quite intense thriller at points to an almost sort of revenge horror, to also then having some really, really kind of laugh out loud comedy moments as well. And while the subject is quite heavy and there may be some viewers who don't think it's necessarily an area to extract comedy from, I thought that the kind of tonal shape-shifting is actually a strength of the film. The director, Connor Haines, refuses to allow the film to be one thing as opposed to many. He refuses to put it in a box and tie it up and leave it in the comedy genre or just make it a pure thriller. Breadwinners exists as all of them at once and is able to walk the line really well between having some funny moments but also having a lot of tension when the viewer will feel quite shocked by the direction that the film's going. A lot of the ability to both retain humour and also bring real intensity in the film comes from its cast. Barry Del Sherman as Hank, who's the customer, has this sort of really controlling, sort of drawling personality that references characters played by the likes of Ben Mendelsohn in the past. He gets to toy with Wade and leave him on tenterhooks as to what direction the conversation's going in. He revels in not allowing Wade to know his identity until he's ready. But Sherman adds a level of depth to Hank as well, as this sort of coolness, this kind of like cruel element of him being someone who will toy with people. There's also a great deal of regret and sadness in the character, and it's understandable why he embarks on this kind of revenge plot. Pancho Morris as Wade as well adds a lot of humour. Wade is the kind of classic customer service guy. He just wants to get through his day, do right by his customers and get back to goofing off with his employees. Norris's ability to portray a man going through this realization that all of a sudden the person he's speaking to isn't who he seems, and that there's actually now all of a sudden a real threat to his life and to the store is really interesting to see. And similar with Hank's character, there's humour to be found there. There's an initial effort from him to respond to threaten Hank back, to try and scare him away, and his coming to terms with his sort of overall powerlessness in the situation is really interesting to see. And I think Norris does a great job of making Wade out to be a pretty normal guy who ultimately doesn't deserve to be in the situation he's in. It adds a layer of sympathy to the character, as well as the comedy elements. Staging the film between the pair and contrasting between the settings in Hank in his car and Wade in the store where his employees are and where he knows there are other people around him that he has to consider as he embarks on this conversation is also really key in helping build the tension throughout the film. Without spoilers, there are other individuals who begin to materialize in the car with Hank, which gives an insight into his mental state, and that just throws in all sorts of spanners into the viewer's understanding of what they're watching. It really creates that sense that the story could go anywhere, and that's really good to have, especially in a short film that only has a sort of 10-minute running. So I'd really recommend Breadwinners, which I thought was a really impressive short film. It might not necessarily be for everyone who doesn't have an appreciation so much for black comedies. There'll be people who think that the subjects are a little bit too serious for humour in the cases where they are, but I think you'd be missing out on the seriousness with which the director also treats the topic, and ultimately some really, really good performances as well from its two leading stars.